Hello, hello. Welcome to Ram and Goat Astrology. I'm Laura Lee.
I am Helena. Hello, hello. Welcome
Hi,
to our
welcome.
episode
Welcome back,
about
or if you're new,
welcome back.
thanks for
Yeah,
listening.
yeah. Today we are talking about Neptune,
Yes.
and we're gonna talk about some like historical facts, and uh, because what's happened is that Neptune has changed signs, and why that is a big deal to every astrologer around and every person is because Neptune spends so much time in each sign.
Yep.
It was, how long was it in Pisces? Just before it moved into
Yes.
Aries now?
Hang on, now I have to go look. Hold, please. I have that information right here. It is 2011 to 2025.
Yes, so that is a long, long time. This is a generational planet, just as Uranus and Pluto and
Yeah.
Jupiter. Like these guys move super slowly, and Neptune is the second slowest moving planet in the sky.
Yeah,
So Neptune moving signs is a huge, huge deal.
it is.
And we haven't talked so much. We just mentioned it on the May forecast.
hmm Yeah, and we've
Was it
talked a
April
lot about
forecast?
Pluto because Pluto changed signs, which is also a huge
Yeah.
deal. We need to talk about Saturn because he's about to change signs. These are big deals. These planets don't make these shifts all that often, and for them to all be doing it all at the same year, Uranus is going to do it in a month or two. So, like, we're having huge shifts. So that's why we want to cover these bigger planets.
Yeah, a bit
How
of
do
an identity crisis for like the whole, like globally.
for
Now, when
real?
we're shifting so much energy, we're like, who are we now? Yeah.
Yes. So, how would you describe Neptune's energy for people who are new to this?
So Neptune shows us sort of how we are connected to and our connection to everything that is otherworldly, like everything that is not in this 3D material world. It's inspiration, it's intuition,
Mm-hmm.
it's emotions, it can also be illusions
Yeah.
because it's all of these things that we just make up in our head, and
Mm-hmm.
it's also dreams.
Yes. Yes.
It can also be like a very escapism kind of vibe where you just want to leave this world and be in another place, another space, but you don't know where and why. So that can also give like a bit of an anxious, vibey feeling.
Exactly. Misty
Mm,
horizons and the deep unknown. To me, I always picture Neptune as like I'm on a boat and I'm just kind of sailing across the water into this foggy mist. And it's kind of eerie, kind of mystical,
yeah,
kind of spiritual, kind of
like a
nerve
siren.
wracking.
It's
It
like seeing a siren.
siren, like a siren. Yes,
Yeah.
mer people. Yes,
Mm,
it feels very illusional, delusional. You don't know what is real, right? The term real comes in.
exactly.
Is
It
this,
doesn't exist.
is
Yeah.
it exist? Does it not exist? Where is existence? Where does existence live? Right?
Who am
This
I? What am I?
exactly. So if you think about it like music, it's not the hard staccato beats of Saturn. It's not the rhythm keeper. It's more of that kind of just low energy in the background of just that
The
ambient music
vibes.
that just kind of fades
Mm,
from one song to another and rolls from one
yeah.
song to another. There's no hard endings or hard beginnings with
Yeah.
Neptune.
And it is a water planet.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's one of our water planets, and it has a similar energy to Pisces.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, it's a super interesting planet. And we've been now, before hitting record here, we've been researching a bit about what happened last time, because now we just moved into Aries, and this
hmm
is very new. And I was a little bit like, oh my God, what's going to happen now? Moving from this Pisces energy that it's been in for a long time, and
Yes.
Neptune in Pisces is sort of it's very comfortable there. And
hmm
now Neptune's
Yeah,
moving into a fire sign, and we're like, okay, what to expect?
right.
So we've
Because
been looking at some history.
it fits so nicely with Pisces. It just was
Yeah.
comfortable, right? That's the
Yeah.
energy. It feels at home. And we got to live during the time where that took place. Not everybody gets to experience that energy.
Mm.
So we got to live during this transit through Pisces and feel what it feels like in its home. And now we get to shift into something
Yeah.
new.
Yeah.
There's a
All
lot
right.
happening. So, what we ended up doing was looking back at the past with Pisces and Neptune the last time. And we thought that might be a good place to start because we literally just exited out of Neptune and Pisces. So we're like, let's go back and see what that was like back in the day, right? What are some fun facts from that era? So the last time this happened, it was 1847 to 1861. Okay, that
And this is the
was
last time Neptune is in Pisces.
correct. Correct. So that theme during that time was spiritual and mystical awakening. There was a spiritualist movement that exploded. You can look up the Fox, FOX, the Fox sisters of
Mm.
1848. There's all kinds of just interesting things that happened. A fun fact from this era, the first photographs of Neptune itself wouldn't be taken till much later, but this is the period when photography first began to take hold. So we were able to capture some type of spirit of reality, which is what a photo is. It is essentially an image captured on paper, right? And that's when
Yeah.
photography first became a thing. Isn't that cool?
It is so cool because when you think about like the first cameras, I don't know, I have no idea how cameras work nowadays, but the first cameras, I mean, it was so much about illusion because it was like the first camera was like this big
Yes.
giant black room, right? And you were standing in and it had like this little hole that you looked through. And it's all about like capturing the light and also was so many mirrors, right?
Yes.
It was like mirroring you upside down, which is interesting because Neptune never like it's interesting because yeah, we got the photography like we got to be able to photograph someone. And that is very like 3D sort of in this world, but it did it in this Neptune way of like of capturing you but upside down in a different kind of way behind veil.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a very Neptune kind of, you know,
Yeah.
vibe. And I don't know if we mentioned it, but Neptune is very artistic.
Oh, incredibly. Yes. The spirituality of Neptune, the spirituality of Pisces is really what art comes from, right? What music
Yeah.
comes from, what poetry comes from. So all of
Yes.
these art, poetry, music, they're all part of the spiritual realm, if you guys don't know.
Mm.
That's where they are. So the photographs, it's such an interesting concept right there because photographs used to be essentially imprinted onto paper, and now we've moved into this digital photography. And if you think about it, it doesn't really exist. Like it does, but
Yeah.
it doesn't. And that's such a Neptunian Piscean energy, isn't it? And
Mm.
in 2011, that's when iPhones were just getting going. That's when they were just, they came out right around 2008 or 2009. This is when my kids were born, so I remember these things very clearly. But I have a daughter born in 2011. She's a 0 degree Neptune Pisces.
And
And
this is
then,
the second time Neptune went into
yeah.
Pisces.
And that's
Yeah.
when our photography went from film into the digital realm. And that's when cameras started to transition into digital in a big way, right? And in kind of a
Interesting.
big way, a more tangible way for everybody. So shortly after that is when like live images started. And if you think about it, that's like the Harry Potter realm where the picture itself is moving, right?
Yeah.
So it very much feels like photography itself is a Piscean Neptunian concept
Yeah.
to begin
Yeah.
with.
For sure.
So that
What
last
else
time,
happened?
yeah, last time Charles Dickens published A Christmas Carol in 1843, and then David Copperfield in 1850. They both touched deeply on the compassion and redemption of society's forgotten souls. So that's that
Mm.
Piscean and Neptunian compassion and healing energy that was really kind of taking hold. And then, of course, Charles Dickens was about dreams and death and going into the spirit realm and talking with spirits and communing with spirits to then change your life.
Yeah.
What a very Neptunian Piscean story.
Yeah, and when you asked me to talk about Neptune, I can't believe that I forgot to say compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is like one of the, if I would say three words, that should have been one of those words about Neptune. Compassion and empathy is a huge,
Huge.
and they're huge Neptune themes.
Mm-hmm.
But there was other things happening. Like so there's a lot on the art scene.
Mm-hmm.
There
Yep.
was also a lot.
Symbolism in art and poetry really began to emerge
Mm,
then too, leading to that modernist movements and then these softening into dreamlike impressions. So a lot of art and the energy of like the bohemian movements and all of those followed after this Piscean Neptunian transit in the
yeah.
1840s to 1860s.
And the Bohemian movement also included a lot of opium smoking,
Yes. Yes.
right?
So we have to talk about that because that was
Yeah.
huge. Apparently, the opium dens were huge during the historical time frame of Neptune in Pisces last time. Basically, people needing to check out. Like that is really what it
Yeah.
was. And how we check out now into our phones and binge watching, that's what people used opium dens for. So huge rise in Europe and Asia specifically, but escaping reality. That's
Yeah.
a major theme of that Neptunian Piscean um, era and
Mm.
energy, but also compassion and suffering concepts there. Public health and humanitarian efforts really started to emerge. And this is when Florence Nightingale, for those of you who don't know her, I was in nursing school for many years. She is the founder of modern day nursing. And she began her legendary work during the Crimean War of 1853 to 1856. So, very Neptunian service of to the suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
fun
so
stuff.
interesting.
Yeah.
And what about the Fox sisters? I hadn't
Yes.
really heard about them before.
I haven't either. I want to look into them now, of course, because now my interest has been intrigued. But in 1848, they became famous for claiming to be able to contact spirits. And they sparked mass interest in seances and mediumship. So this has been huge this time around in this Pisces Neptune realm these last couple of years. I know for myself, I have come out of the closet as somebody who can commune with the spirits. It has been incredibly weird to not only honor that and acknowledge it out loud, but then also like incorporate it into my business and like treat it professionally has been really, really, really weird. But that's
Mm.
what the energies have been asking and demanding that I do. And it's not just me, it's many, many, many people. So I feel like this is kind of a waking up of our
So you
society.
mean it's a correlation of Neptune being in Pisces in the 1800s and
Mhm.
Neptune in Pisces now
I think so.
in the 2000s?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that energetics of waking up and kind of creating this vibration of connectivity, which is what
Yeah.
Neptune and Pisces does, right? It's almost like the veil gets thinner during this time frame. So of course people would claim that they can do mediumship. Of course, this is the time frame when my mediumship would start to step in and step up is when the planet Neptune goes on top of my brain, Mercury, in
Yeah.
Pisces. Of course, that's when that would happen. And I would start to use the internet. It's in my 11th house and share it with others. Of course, it lines up so wonderfully. And this didn't just happen for me, this happened 165 years ago for many, many, many other people. In fact, to the point where transcendentalism just boomed throughout Europe, and
Mm.
Thoreau and all kinds of writers wrote about nature and spirit and the soul and the connection with all of it and how we're all interconnected. And it just kept growing from there.
Yeah. I think that's big too. Like the because Neptune, who is so sensitive and has a lot of empathy, makes us be more in contact. Like being in Pisces, really like heightening
Mhm.
each other's energies that are so similar. It really makes us become more in touch with nature. Because it makes us stop and like listen and like what are we doing to our planet? You know,
Yeah.
I have empathy for all the beings around me, and I have empathy for all the, for the nature. I feel like we are one. Like that
Yes.
is totally a Neptune sentence. We are one.
Hmm.
And everything is cyclical. So Neptune going around the zodiac and all the different signs, and this is for all the planets going around, but it's all what we are meant to learn and grow in at that moment. So what is it, every 168 years
Yep.
that it takes for Neptune to travel around the zodiac, it brings us back to the same place. So
Hmm.
every 168 years, it will be back in Pisces, getting us to reconnect to empathy
Yes.
for a long period of time, so we really can, and to spirituality, and then moving sign to Aries, wanting us to focus on something else. But it's all cyclical. So
Yes.
we have been there again. We all on this planet needed to reconnect with ourselves, with spiritualism,
Yep.
because yeah, since 2011, when Neptune entered Pisces in the modern times, yes, spirituality has been on the rise, like so much. So
Oh,
much has happened
well,
since then. And
meditation, hypnosis, the healing with and through
yeah,
all of that mystical realm, right? The rise of retreats where people go to do psychedelics or microdosing or whatever, right? Ayahuasca ceremonies, shamanism. I mean, it is massively on the rise. I know so many people who have gone to Costa Rica to do ayahuasca ceremonies and with trained people who hold you and carry you through this. And there's just been such a revival in this urge to
yeah,
connect emotionally with that deep compassion. And the literature that was written in the 1800s, Wuthering Heights in 1847, Jane Eyre in 47, The Scarlet Letter, Moby Dick, these works explored human suffering, existential themes, a lot of spiritual redemption, and kind of this unfulfilled love. Very classic Neptune Pisces
yeah. And that is also
motifs.
super romantic, but also like
Yes,
sad.
exactly, exactly. And in this time, we saw a lot of books come out on mental health.
Oh yes,
So much in the mental health realm, unbelievable, with healing traumas and going into your past and your generational trauma healing and healing from your mother's wounds and your grandmother's wounds. And I mean, the
yeah,
emotional connection and the moral themes and the spiritual and mental redemption there is, I think, just in tune with the.
yeah. Like it is no coincidence that we all on this planet, we have been, it's been so concentrated the like with all of these things, like now, like saying something like healing my mother wound, like it's any normal conversation,
Almost, it's
almost,
getting
but like
there.
it's so, yes, it's, and like yoga is so widespread, meditation, hypnosis even,
Yes.
which is super Neptunian.
Yeah,
All of
right.
these things is in like the common world. And I remember like 10 years ago being interested in all of these things, but feeling like I can't talk
Can't
about
do
them
it.
because people are not really open
Can't
for
do
it.
it yet. Yeah. Yeah.
No, but
It wasn't
now,
until Saturn made his way through Aquarius that helped us all take our time to be mature and figure our unique, authentic gifts out.
yeah,
And then that Neptune going through Pisces at the same time
yeah,
amplified our connection with source and spirit and what our gifts are. So the
yeah,
two planets moving together, I think, really amplified it this time, specifically with the use of technology. And like, look, you and
mm,
I would have clearly never connected in 1847, right? Like, obviously. But because of the connection with the internet, we now have this dissolving borders, right? We
mm,
literally have this dissolving borders, and then figuratively. And back in the 1800s, we had the Irish potato famine, which led to mass immigration and massive humanitarian crises with global implications. So that was a big thing. And now, this last time, we had the pandemic, right? With global implications. So we have
Mm.
these dissolving borders, we have border issues, border, like we all understand borders have been a major theme specifically recently, right?
Mm.
And in the 1800s, there was utopian communities called like Brook Farm, Oneida, and then the Shakers. These were all communities that thrived briefly in the US, but they were chasing ideals of harmony and spiritual perfection.
Mm.
And I know we see things like Burning Man festivals and stuff like that, where people come together for this kind of utopian mindset for at least a short amount of time. So,
Yeah. And Neptune is super important when it comes to religion because when you talk about religion, I mean, what is it if it's not like it's sort of making you have a connection to something you can see, to something divine, right?
right,
That is most religions, either
correct.
if it's to a god, if it's to yourself. Um, so Neptune is, it is religion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it can also be this like um following a leader, like a very charismatic leader. It can also be, a sect, like just following someone blindly.
Yes, that
And
would be
what
what's happening in America.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of like right now, there is so much on the internet. We know now not to believe
Correct.
what we see. Like we have learned the hard way.
To be skeptical.
Um, to be skeptical for a couple of years, like really hard. But there is some leaders in this world that are very, very charismatic and they have this huge following, but it's also very blurry and not really, it doesn't make sense that they have this big following.
Correct.
And you're sort of wondering like what's going on, and it's all like sort of shape shifting and changing directions, and you don't know what to believe or what's true and not true. And this is also very Neptunian.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
in the 1800s there was it was called the Second Great Awakening, where religious revivals were sweeping through rural America. The increase in Christian mysticism and visions of apocalypses were big, 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 and then also waiting for salvation. That was a really big movement and theme during
mm,
that time, specifically in America. And there was also huge new religious movements that were rising. The Latter Day Saints or the Mormon Church grew
mm,
rapidly. Joseph Smith, their leader, died in 1844. And then it moved to the west into Utah, mainly in Brigham Young as their leader in the late 1840s. And then that church and the Utah area just skyrocketed with religious
mm,
movements, right? And it
yeah,
wasn't even just it became that area of the West, it became their identity. And
mm.
the whole area of Salt Lake City is they don't drink coffee, they don't have alcohol, like it's very, very,
Self-sacrifice.
yes,
I
very,
mean,
very
I would say some people wouldn't say that is
right.
self-sacrifice,
But
but
it's a very kind of
they have
Neptunian,
limits.
yep, very kind of Neptunian energy where
Mm,
you go there if you're not from there, and I'm not cutting anybody down by any means, but it's just different, right? It's different to
mm,
go there. And I went there for a Young Living convention, and it was my first time there, and it felt like I was in a different realm. It really did. It felt very energetically different, strange, unique. It just had this kind of vibe to it that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but I could feel it. And I think it was
mm.
the religious movement and the religious energetics around there that I wasn't used to that
Yeah.
particular flavor of that religion, right? So that was a big thing that started in the 1840s in America, and then we've seen that again this time around as well, where this like major Christian movement kind of came over and really poured itself into our government. And that's what's happening now. So we'll have to see what's going on, what happened
Yeah.
in Aries last time with Neptune and Aries
Yeah.
last time. So what else you want to talk about with Pisces and Neptune? Anything?
Well, are we going to talk about Pisces and Neptune modern times, or are we jumping first to Pisces,
Well, we
Neptune in
certainly can.
Aries
Yeah, we
last
certainly
time?
can talk about Pisces Neptune this last time. So, one of the biggest things I think that was so interesting that happened from 2011 to recently was the rise of streaming
Yeah.
everything, streaming platforms, streaming, like lack of ownership. And people started renting houses, like the renters market went up, and streaming services, and people paying for memberships, right? Like
Yeah.
those types of things where there's no ending, there's no, it's just this kind of
No end, no
ongoing,
beginning.
this is ongoing thing. I thought that
Yeah.
was a really interesting Neptunian Piscean theme that came up this last time.
Yeah. And I think that where we have seen Neptune now from the modern times, and we have just now since like a month and a half back or a month back, Neptune changed signs from Pisces to Aries. So this is very, very recent, from 2011 until 2025. It was here last, and during that time, we have just been able to escape on the internet, big time, and
Oh
there's
yeah.
no boundaries, like you
Yeah.
said, on
The
the
internet
internet.
just took off. It took
Trolling.
off. Yeah. Oh yeah, trolling's
Trolling
a
is a
thing.
huge thing. And like, claiming to be someone else
Mm-hmm.
online,
Mm-hmm.
like catfishing,
Oh, listen to
all
this.
these
This
things.
is interesting. This is a
Mhm.
great situation of Neptune Pisces that happened to me right after it moved. So we moved to our property March 29th, 2012. Okay. So right as Neptune was settling into Pisces. Right after that is when I was really getting active on Facebook. And that's when Facebook groups were just becoming a thing. And I was in this group called the Crunchy Converts. And it was people learning how to be more holistic or go more granola. And that's the crunchy idea. So it was me and maybe 200 or 300 other moms. It wasn't a real big group, but it wasn't real. It wasn't small. It was active, and
Mm.
we started off with like 30, and then we grew to about 300. That was about the most. But we really knew each other. We got to know each other really well. And there was one lady in there. Her name was, she called herself Chloe, and she was in Australia. And Chloe, we found out after, was completely made up energy.
Oh.
And she raked us all in. I mean, I'm talking all of the mamas in this group. She had this story going for months and months, and probably even a year or two, where she was living this fake life with these fake kids and these fake scenarios. And then, like, something happened to her with the kids. And then, like, to the point where many of us were like wanting to go to Australia to help her. Like, it was,
Oh my God.
I mean, talk about the wool
Yeah.
pulled over your eyes and delusions and illusions and using the internet to troll. And all of us in this group, we still kind of get together once in a while and chat about how messed up it was. We all felt so scammed, like
Mm.
emotionally scammed and mentally scammed and time scammed. It was such an illusion that she had put on. And to me, looking back at that, like, it's not a big deal now because nobody lost money or anything like that. But that's one of the first experiences I had of, like,
Yeah.
that kind of Neptunian trolling internet fake
How did you find
thing.
out?
We ended up, the story ended up starting to get, like, her lie. She was getting caught in
Weird.
her
Yeah,
lie.
she was getting
It
caught.
was getting
Hmm.
weirder and weirder and weirder and twisted and twisted. And finally, a couple of the other ladies in the group started to really, like, some of the Virgos and Scorpios in the group started to do their due diligence and find the
Yeah.
find the faults in the system. But people like
Yeah.
me who have our Mercury and Pisces, oh man, she got me good. Like, she got me
Yeah.
emotionally and mentally. Like, she really pulled me in, and my naturally compassionate mind really got. So it was an interesting experience that happened in early, like,
Mm.
2012, 2013, that even maybe even the 2014. It went on for a while in those early years. And I don't know if that's happened, if things like that have happened to you guys, but just think about, since 2011, like, what has been something in your life where you have just had this delusional experience or this illusional experience where you were thinking something was one way and clearly it was not even sort of that way.
Yeah.
These are the themes. This is the stuff you were really supposed to work on and learn about.
Yeah,
So,
and like side note, now we're talking globally, but if you want to, you can of course check what house does this change fall in? In what house did you have mm, do you have Pisces? In what house do you have Aries?
Yeah.
Where
Yes.
will you see this change more personally to you? But another really big thing this last time around with Neptune in Pisces is medication, drugs.
Yes.
Now, like you said, you got a message from your dad.
Mm-hmm.
He was quoting someone on Instagram that
Yes.
he had found, and it
Yeah,
was
he
on this
sent me,
topic,
yep,
funnily enough.
he sent me a message. Him and I just kind of share information back and forth. Biohacking bombshell, Instagram handle. She posted Adderall prescriptions. This is one drug that is supposed to be helpful for your brain. Now, I have been on this drug. I have very strong opinions of this drug. Did it help me for my brain? Sort of, yes. However, it's
Mm,
speed. Okay, it is meth,
it is
and
speed, yes.
it is a very very good appetite suppressant. And I went from, I'm 5'4" and I was 138 pounds, and within 6 weeks of taking that medication, I dropped to 106 pounds. I lost hair, I lost teeth, was my skin was green. It was anorexia induced
Yeah,
medication induced this. And so I ended up, yes, my brain functioned better on Adderall. And I also was able to detox the crap from my body. And I didn't eat the shit food that was triggering all of the mental health issues I was struggling with. So, twofold here.
mm,
Anyway, but Adderall prescriptions, 2005. Actually, I was diagnosed in like probably 2003. So I was in this category. 2005, 9 million. 2012, 16 million. 2022, 41.4 million prescriptions. That's prescriptions. How many people are using it not on prescriptions? And it says
mm.
we live in a world where legal meth is now the solution for everyone versus addressing root cause. And I agree. I think
What's
that's
the name of this person?
a
If someone wants to
biohacking, yeah,
read more about this.
biohacking bombshell.
Ah, that's the
Biohacking
handle
bombshell.
on
Yep,
Instagram.
yep, that's the handle.
Yeah,
So I think that's a super Neptunian concept, right? Our
yeah,
brain feels chaotic and out of control, so we medicate it to make it linear and make it easier to manage in our structured Saturnian lifestyle
yeah.
instead
And
of
modern
letting
times
it
when
be woo and maybe
exactly.
eliminate the things that cause overstimulation. Why would we do that? That would be too easy.
Yeah. And a couple of my friend who has been on a similar medication for ADD or ADHD, I think for ADHD actually. Well, one thing that I've heard is that it really has repressed their creativity.
Oh, yes.
So the connection to themselves, because
Big
you get
time.
like sort of numbed off. And also, it can absolutely lead to you feeling like feeling very anxious and getting this like what's it called when you have an anxiety attack?
Yeah, for me, it showed up in compulsive skin picking. I would
Mm.
literally destroy my skin, and with like I couldn't stop it. Like I couldn't control my hands, and like this angst, and any if there's a pimple or a blemish or anything, I would
Yeah,
destroy it. And I was
yeah,
scarred and pockmarked everywhere. It was my chest, my
yeah,
back, my arms, anything. It was horrific. So now I'm 106 pounds, look really, really unhealthy. Like people would see me and they go, "Oh, you lost weight." Like they were
mm,
like, "Oh, you lost weight." They were like, "Oh, are you on drugs?" Like that was the question,
yeah,
right? And I was like, "Yeah, I'm on a medication that is clearly a drug." But yeah, it killed my creativity. It killed my musicality. I stopped singing after that. I stopped creating for years, and it really caused a lot of angst in a way that I just destroyed myself, physically.
yeah.
It was awful.
Because what I think is the like why it's been like this now with Neptune in Pisces is because during this time when Neptune is in Pisces, our senses are so heightened. We are so like mental health can be more we can be more aware of it. Like it can show itself clearer in us globally
Mhm.
because we are so close to our feelings and emotions, and sometimes it's very hard to handle this. And what do you do when you can't handle it? You
Well,
look to something to shut it off.
okay. So now during this Pisces Neptune timeframe, there has been a psychedelic renaissance essentially. So Pisces ruled Neptune governs both the collective dreaming and escapism, right? And these qualities vividly reflect the revival of the psychedelic research. So in 2021, the FDA issued its first draft guidance for clinical trials involving psychedelics. So
Yeah.
psilocybin, LSD, MDMA, making a huge seismic shift towards making this legitimate medicine, right? Legitimate
Yeah.
substances as tools for trauma, depression, and end of life care, which we need so desperately. We need better
Yeah.
end of life care. We need
Mm.
so much better treatment for PTSD, all of that, right? We do not have quality treatments. We have some treatments, but it's been really interesting to see this psychedelic information, especially mushrooms. Holy man, the information on mushrooms alone has been astonishing the last 5 to 10
Mm.
years. I don't think I've ever heard more about mushrooms in my life.
Yeah, so that's like there is also this how people are now using natural medicine, like plant medicine
Yep.
has also skyrocketed during this time.
Yep.
So there's always two sides of a coin. There's no such thing as bad or good energy, it's just how we use it. So the energy is like mental health, spiritual, like this sort of Neptune, like opening us up to
Mm-hmm.
feel everything. And then there's how do we use it? Okay, do we want to check out
Yeah.
with some kind of prescription,
Yep.
or do we want to check in?
Right. And that's what
Are
I
we
chose
looking
to
to really
do
check in?
with
Yeah,
oils. It was introduced in 2013. So
yeah,
I had my daughter 2011 is when Neptune went to 0 degrees Pisces. Then I had my daughter 2013, which is when I lost my shit. And 2 months later is when I was introduced to plant medicine, to essential oils. And
yeah.
I can't even describe how they changed my life with
Mm,
the breath, right? And this
yeah,
scent and these intangible things, right? You can't touch
yeah,
breath and you can't touch scent, but these Neptunian concepts are the thing that saved my life and probably my
yeah,
children's. I was so bad postpartum. I was so rageful. I was so scary, so scared of myself. It was horrific. And I used essential oils as life saving tools, and they were. And then, of
yeah.
course, cannabis, right? Cannabis has been hugely popular these since 2011 when it started to become actually legal, right?
I was gonna ask, when did it become legal in the States? Because that must have coincided
It
with
really
Pisces moving
started
into
during
Neptune.
this movement.
Yeah,
Yeah, during this time
yeah.
too. Yep. Yep. And then of course let's talk about collective trauma with Pisces and Neptune and
Mm,
this pandemic situation,
yeah,
right? Like that was I was so Neptunian. Nobody knew what the hell was going on. There was no
hmm,
rules. There was rules, but there weren't. They would change every day. Then the news would come on and tell us one thing, but then in reality we were seeing another thing. And then oh my god.
yeah.
Just a
Oh, for sure.
Neptunian Piscean nightmare, really.
Mm.
And then, of
Yeah,
course,
and how it really played on our emotions
oh,
in a way
yes.
that it was like, you know, if you're like if you have empathy for others, you go and do this. You take,
Yes.
you take this vaccine and you protect, like you have this cover
Yep.
of yourself. If you don't do it, you're a bad person. And like it created like this like very idealistic also way to be and to handle it, and super emotional.
Yeah. And think about if Neptune rules illness, you guys, like think about that, right? So this was an invisible, dissolving threat that forced our societies to confront a lot of collective vulnerability and really it deepened our empathy for the other in some ways, but it also created a major divide in some ways as well. And there was a lot of separation, like this
Hmm.
forced separation and having to like view people through glass and hug through plastic and like, what the fuck? It was,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
messed up.
And it was also in Swedish we call it droppsmitta. It's like you would get it through droplets in the air,
Wow.
water, Neptune.
It's literally
And
Neptune. Yeah.
also yeah, it's like this invisible fog pretty much, which is Neptune.
Hmm.
And also it would attach itself onto our lungs.
Lungs.
And our lungs represent grief.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
grief also feels,
Yep. That's where we hold grief, the emotionality and the
yeah,
energetics of grief. Yeah.
it's also very Neptunian. And it was interesting what you said about that we need better end of life care. Because I
Yes.
feel like now, in the last couple of years, I mean, birth doulas has been on the rise for a long time, but
Death
end of life
doulas.
doulas has been coming too. And um, like being birthed and dying, they're very, very Pluto, very Scorpio, but also Neptune because it's about our spirit entering or
Transition.
leaving.
Hmm.
It's the
And it's
transition.
also the sitting in the quiet in between
Mm,
space, right?
yeah.
I have been a death doula as a nursing assistant, and I have also transitioned over many of our animals, and
Mm,
there is a there's a quiet peace to sitting with somebody who is transitioning out of this realm. And
yeah.
to me, I view it as something that, yes, while I feel the emotions and I cry, it's such a beautiful thing too. I really,
Yeah.
I don't know, I really appreciate it. And it's something I hold a lot of reverence for. Like my heart, I can feel it in my throat. I can feel the emotions creeping up right now. I just hold a
Yeah.
lot of reverence for the transitionary process, which is I've interestingly been a midwife student and a death doula student as well. I've actually been in
Mm,
training for both of those and have experienced many, many, many of those situations. And I feel honored to be able to have experienced that for these people and in these situations and even with my animals too. But it's such a God, the emotions, right? The emotionality of it. Oh, it's intense. And
it is.
I do think end of life care is something we have to get better at here for sure. Do you have good end
I
of
think
life care over there?
I don't even know if we have any. I was gonna say, of course we have some, but I'm not so sure. I don't know. I don't think I can speak on it. I haven't seen it close up, but I feel like overall it's a subject that is not. It's still even though we've had Neptune and Pisces, it's still very repressed.
Hmm.
But it's
Yeah.
it's becoming better. We're becoming closer to it, but it's still like too hard for people to look at that,
Yeah.
I think.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully now as we transition to Aries, we will take action on those
Yeah.
things because really the mainstream um, mystical wellness business really took off this last couple of years with Neptune and Pisces, and it became a $3 billion business with mindfulness, guided meditation, Reiki, yoga, astrology readings. Right? These were all fringe things once, and now you and
Yeah.
I literally met an online astrology school, which is ongoing and they keep filling up and Deborah Silverman's classes keep growing and I've taken all kinds of astrology schools. You just went to an astrology conference,
I
right?
did.
In
Yeah.
Stockholm. So I mean these things are now kind of the norm in a way, right? And it's
Yeah.
been huge this time around with Neptune and Pisces. So now we're going to move into Aries. So what's going to happen with that energy? I'm so curious.
Well, what happened last time between 1861 and 1875, which is the last time Neptune was in Aries?
That was a long time ago.
All right. A long time ago. What happened was, if we look at some historical events, um, the US Civil War began in 1861.
That's a
Idealistic war,
that's a big deal.
spiritualized
That's a big
conflict.
deal.
That
Think
is a big
about this.
deal.
We were trying to basically end this concept that you're lesser of a person because of your skin color,
Yeah,
right? Like that's really what we're working on. That's what we're working towards.
exactly. And this big, massive change now, like because then what happened was Aries moved into, no, sorry, Neptune moved into Aries. And for those who don't know Aries energy is the fighter, the
Mm-hmm.
warrior, the one that's gonna stand up for then spirit, like Neptune themes.
Yeah.
It's the one who's gonna make action out of Neptunian emotions.
So the Civil
right?
War started almost immediately when Neptune walked into Aries, like literally
Mm.
within the month of Neptune walking into Aries.
Wow.
So it was April 1861, and it was a spiritualized conflict. If you think about it, we've got Aries pioneering energy, like you said, and this it's initiating energy, right? It's like starting something, and it's fused with this
Yeah.
Neptune's fog that has this higher purpose, right? Turning ordinary battles into these crusades of conviction, right? They really are really going for it with this energetic, like spiritualism infused into this. And
Yeah.
soldiers on both sides really spoke of divine energy and divine mandates. And it says in the North and the South alike, they saw their cause as a moral imperative. Like this was
Mm.
for moral justice. We
Yeah.
could not allow the slaves to be free because that was immoral because they were lesser of a people. And the Northern was
Hmm.
like, we cannot allow slaves to continue because that's immoral because they are equal
Mm.
people, right? Like it
Mm.
was equal and opposite energetics.
Yeah. And what else happened was that the Red Cross was founded.
Yeah,
The Red Cross was founded in 1863.
I love that.
Idealism turned into action. That feels very Neptune and Aries.
Yeah, this I feel like is one of the most concrete
It's even a red
expressions.
cross.
Right, right. And it's not a blue one, it's not a watery thing. This is a red
No.
cross, right? Very Aries, like we boom, we're
Can you
here.
see me? Red
Yes.
cross. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is honestly, I think, one of the most concrete expressions of Neptune's call to service
Yeah.
with moving into Aries. Like, and it
Yeah.
happened right away, 1863. You know damn well it was started prior to that, but they, got their shit together and labeled it in
Exactly. Before that,
1863.
Neptune was in Pisces, feeling all the feelings, and then
Exactly.
it moved into Aries and went like, okay, now we have to take action
Yeah.
on what we're feeling.
So the Red Cross was driven by Henry Dunant's, yep, Henry Dunant's vision of neutral aid to wounded combatants, regardless of
Yeah.
the side they're on. So this
Yeah.
is the organization that really crystallized this Piscean virtue of compassion into the Aries style of initiation. Oh my God, I
Yeah.
love that. It's such a great representation and energetics of it, and it feels so aligned, right? Dunant's pamphlet, A Memory of Solferno, had urged immediate action, and his spiritual empathy for the suffering birthed an enduring institution that lasts today. In that spark of idealism turned into structured aid, we can see Neptune's dream of universal care given the ram's charge to lead. So I think
Mm.
in today's day and age, we're going to see that more and more and more. We have so many people still struggling with homelessness, so many people still struggling with food insecurity, and clearly America is messed up when it comes to healthcare. We obviously have people in Gaza struggling for food as well. I think we're going to see some major shifts coming up very, very soon with
Yeah.
these things.
Exactly. If you look back, yeah, you see that action is taken
Yep.
when Neptune is moving to Aries. Action is taken based on, yeah, moral grounds and empathy.
Yep. Yep.
And but it's also interesting because Neptune rules religion.
Yes.
And what happened a month before Neptune moved into Aries is that the Pope died.
Yes. This time.
The
Yeah.
Pope, yeah, Pope
Mm-hmm.
Francis passed away on, was it the 29th of, am I saying this the wrong way? Maybe it was a month in
There's a
between. Let's see. Was he died on the 21st, April 21st?
Yep.
Ah, so okay, Neptune moved into Aries March 30th.
Yes. And then he died
And a month
April.
after, yeah.
He died a month later.
Franciscus died. Yes.
Yes. And so now
21 days
we
after.
have a fresh new leader of this church who is
Yes.
really calling for peace. Like that is that
A
he,
world leader. Yeah.
yes, a world leader calling for peace. And I'm seeing some of his statements have action statements in them. They have Aries verbiage. And
Hmm.
now I don't follow the Pope very much. I don't follow the religion stuff very much, but when it comes up, I read it and I'm like, oop, there's an Aries word. Oop, there's an Aries word. Oop,
Yeah.
there. And so I'm seeing him, but it's also very Neptunian, right? With the
Yeah.
peace and the caring and the compassion, but then like doing something about it. So This is a period where I think it's very paradoxical with Neptune
Yeah.
moving into Aries, because we're driving humanity forward in a fiery action way, but it's very like soulful and very surrendering as well. So we have to remember that to have a true spiritual awakening, it comes not really gently, right?
Yeah.
There's usually upheavals and puking sessions, or battles. There's something to fight for typically. So
Yeah.
this is a really interesting, like, being tested and then expanded and then tested and
Yeah.
expanded, and it's an interesting time frame we're in.
It is. And yeah, I don't follow really like Pope news either. Um, but like I feel like the times we live in right now, they play a very important role because people feel very lost right now because other world leaders are hard to trust. So there's a lot of trust in the Pope right now, I feel, and it'll be interesting to see this new Pope and see how he. Because I'm not sure yet. Like I don't know if I like this guy or not. Like I haven't seen enough. I don't really
Yeah.
trust yet. But I would love to see his chart
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
see maybe he's an Aries. Maybe there's a lot of Aries and fire in him.
Right. Well, he named himself
Wait,
Leo, so there's that.
I was gonna say
We got
he
that
named
already.
himself
Uh-huh.
Leo. Yeah, so he has a fire name.
So something
Yeah, that's very
interesting that
interesting.
happened in the 1800s last time is the surge of spiritualism, um, even more so. So we talked about it, the seances and stuff started with the Fox sisters, but then when Neptune moved into Aries, this is an article I'm reading. It says the war laid bare morality and mortality. And it on this unprecedented scale, right? Americans, Europeans, everybody was yearning for contact with loved ones that were lost on the battlefield. And for those of you that don't know, go look at the numbers. The amount of people that died and the amount of families that lost loved ones on both the North and the South was horrific. Like, it was horrific. So it says the foxglove white parlors of New England and the dimly lit drawing rooms of London filled with seances, spirit rape rappings, and table turnings. Basically,
Hmm.
mediums claiming to channel fallen soldiers or ancestors, trying to offer comfort that bridged the continents and the class divides. This wasn't mere escapism. Neptune and Aries urged people to take spiritual exploration as seriously as they took their civic duty, forging a
Hmm.
democratization of
Hmm.
mystical practice that swept across social strata. I see that now, where like I'm trying to teach people to incorporate astrology, and which also incorporates spirituality, into their daily life, right? And into their parenting style, and learning where your daughter's series placement is so that you can help her eat her food better and have better blood sugar levels, right? I'm literally, you have to take it seriously in order to
Yeah.
function properly in our really jarring society. And I
Hmm.
think that's what this paragraph is explaining happened then, because things were so jarred because of the war. So everything's all jarred. You don't know if your brother's on your side or your sister's on that side, or who, where everybody is, and if they died or whatever. Oh my gosh, that must have been a
Yeah.
nightmare. And
Yeah.
they were just trying to find some kind of semblance of stability, and that was through their spirituality. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're doing now. Exactly. At least I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And whenever we're now like talking about what can happen when Neptune is now in Aries again, like what are we gonna see? Trying to like predict what's gonna happen. But I'm gonna quote Rick Levine, another astrologer
Yes.
that I heard speak this weekend in Stockholm, and he just said, I don't know if this is something he usually says, but he said, when someone asks me like what's gonna happen tomorrow? What's gonna happen next month? He was like, I don't know. It depends what you do today.
Exactly.
Meaning like, yes, there is this energy,
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean that the future is written. It totally depends on how you use it.
Exactly. We have a map, but you can go astray from the map. You can do what you want. It's, you have freedom of choice, but
Mm,
the energies are still at play, and you do have to work within the energies, right? If there's a blizzard, you can choose to go out in the blizzard, with no clothes on, or you can choose to be prepared and dress appropriately and have some extra heater packs in your hands or whatever. You can prep yourself energetically for what is going on. And I think that's the choice we have, right? We can venture out without the supplies we need and get caught in the energies in a negative way, or we can be prepared and we can work through the storm or whatever in a positive way.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of tech frontiers coming up and a lot of hype with AI, and that energy is going to be worked into our life a little bit more, right? The taking action with Aries and Neptune, and the AI being that Piscean realm, like, right? That Neptunian realm.
For sure. I feel like that nebulousness of like talking to ChatGPT, for example, the nebulousness of that, like you're talking to someone who doesn't exist, but it feels almost like you're talking to someone. Like I feel like that's gonna go even deeper.
Yes.
That's gonna like we're gonna be sent out. We're gonna be able to communicate even further away from our planet, so to speak, both metaphorically and physically.
Yep. And I do think we'll see these. We talked about the moral crusades of the war, the Civil War. I think we're going to see that again with these conflict zones, maybe Gaza and things like that, becoming these zones of moral crusades, right? If there's political tension or military tension, same thing with Russia and Ukraine, right? I think Neptune and Aries is going to amplify this sense of we're fighting the good fight. Well, what's the good fight depending on what side you're on, right? So this can lead to this moral clarity or, rally and international support, but it can also risk oversimplifying the complex issues too. So watch the media narratives. I think that's important to be aware of what the media is telling you. Use TikTok, use social media apps to follow people who are on the ground and in the real life situations so you can get different perspectives, right? And making sure that you recognize that there's no one person that's the villain and there's no one person that's the hero, right? Everybody's can play both sides. Everybody can play two sides of that. And we're going to see that big time with Uranus moving into Gemini. We'll see that duality big time coming up this summer.
Yeah.
Such an interesting planet and conversation today. Oh my gosh.
It is.
I feel like we could go through this forever. There's so much more to talk about, but we'll probably do another episode on this because once we get into the flavor of Neptune Aries and we taste it a little bit, we'll probably revisit this because it's so juicy. So much good info here. Yeah. I liked going back and looking at what was going on. We'll have to keep doing that.
I love history. Yeah, yes.
And now we're going to go all look up the Fox sisters because I'm super curious about them. And maybe they were me in another life.
Yeah.
Probably.
Likely. Yes.
Probably. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Today, we hope you enjoyed this exploration of Neptune through Pisces and Aries and the history of it. If you have any ideas for shows you would like us to explore, we would love to dive in. Just let us know and leave a comment, and then please share and like, and you can buy us a tea or a coffee to support the show financially. We certainly appreciate it. And we'll be making some changes in the show coming up here soon. We're not sure what's going to be happening, but I think we're going to go back to weekly shows. That feels like something that we're called to do. So we're exploring it as Neptune moves into Aries, and we're going to make some shifts along with the energies. So can't wait to see what manifests for us.
Yeah.
It's always exciting. We never know.
No, I have no idea.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for joining us this week. Be sure to like and support the show by sharing with a friend or joining us on Patreon. And you can buy us a tea or coffee and financially support us. Thank you so much. It's so appreciated.